Good morning. I am joined with Columbia Police Chief Randy Scott to talk a little bit about the career field of law enforcement. Good morning, Chief Scott. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
Doing good. Can you tell us a little bit about what our students might be involved in law enforcement? What are the basic educational requirements they would need?
Well, law enforcement is like anything in the world today. It's the technology level has raised. It's no longer just the badge and the gun that you traditionally have seen in police work. The policing in general in the country has gone from a regular, what we call professional era policing, into now intelligence-led, and actually the technology is what really runs the police departments now. So what students need to focus on is, of course, making sure that this is a job, it's a public service job.
Yes, sir.
It's a job of service where you have to serve the community. So you first have to be willing to give yourself.
Yes, sir.
If you're not willing to give yourself up to the community, this is not the job for you.
Right.
But I would emphasize on, of course, studying. History is a big part of law enforcement, but technology. And with Westwood High School and the way that our educational systems are now, students would have no problem with the technology aspects of law enforcement.
Yes, sir. Well, I know one of the big stipulations are background researches and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit through the process of a background search and what y'all may see on there and what you cannot be hired for and stuff?
It is so unfortunate. We receive thousands of applications, and we have to turn down so many applicants because of things. Right now, you're in high school.
Yes, sir.
You are forming your life. You are forming yourself as an adult now.
Right.
And if you do things now, it always resurfaces later. So if you are looking to get in a professional field, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's law, whether it's medical, pharmaceutical, you need to start making sure that you are conducting yourself in a professional way, because your background now, even as a high school student, it matters when you come into law enforcement, because your background has to be clean and really a spotless background when it comes to criminal history, when it comes to use of any kind of drugs or narcotics. When it comes to now, I know it's a big thing with young kids, it's prescription drugs. That is another reason that we're turning down applicants. So you really have to focus now at the age of being an adult, because when you're in high school, you're no longer a child. You are responsible for your actions, and we look at that when you apply for law enforcement or any public safety job.
Yes, sir. What kind of specific training do the members of the Columbia Police Department have to go through before they're hired?
Specific training, first is the background check.
Yes,
you do the average drug test, you do a reading test.
Yes,
but the training is a 13-week, it's called a BCS training, basic candidate training. It's 13 weeks at the Columbia Police Department, going through every aspect of training that you would have at the academy, from your legals to your practical application. And when I say practical application, I mean what happens when you go on a call, whether it's a domestic dispute or whether it's something as simple as a citizen that's upset with a neighbor.
Yes.
How do you handle those calls? And how do you do that constitutionally correct?
Right.
So we do a lot of studying of the Constitution, because law enforcement, the Constitution is what we are bound by.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that we do everything, from the First, Fourth Amendment, Second Amendment. You're hearing a lot right now about Second Amendment because of gun legislation. You hear a lot about First Amendment because of freedom of speech. But we really are bound by the Fourth Amendment. So we do a lot of teaching to our candidates about the Fourth Amendment, which is search and seizure, and the use of search warrants and going into houses or seizing someone's freedom.
Yes, sir.
So we do a lot of training, and when our candidates from the City of Columbia Police Department go to the academy, we have the highest success rate of candidates passing. I think out of hundreds of candidates that we've had, I think we may have had one that, not that she didn't pass, but she was injured during the academy and went back and then successfully completed the academy. So the training prior to the academy is extensive. Then you go to the academy for 10 weeks and you learn what the state requires you to do, which, coming from Columbia Police Department, is second nature because you've already done it.
Yes, sir.
Through the BCS training. But the training is very extensive. It's sometimes they look at it as being monotonous,
yes, sir,
because it's so repetitive.
Right.
But being repetitive is good. We do a lot of firearms training, right, which is necessary because we want to be able to protect the citizens, and sometimes lethal force is a part of that.
Yes, sir.
But we want to make sure that we have taught our candidates everything to do and make lethal force the last resort. First, you want to do it by verbal. Right. Then you want to use what's called intermediate, which could be a pepper spray, aspartame, or something called a taser.
Yes, sir.
Which is less than lethal force. So it's a lot of training. And quite honestly, once you become a police officer, you never quit training. I've been in law enforcement now 22 plus years, and I just left the academy last week, actually 2 weeks ago, recertifying on driving and shooting.
Well, you kind of answered it to an extent, but I know that Richland County, do they do the, what you were calling the preliminary training and stuff before you go to the academy?
Richland County Sheriff's Department, they have a training. They don't call it BCS training, but they do have a training that they send candidates to. It's not as long as the City of Columbia training, but the reason is municipal policing and county policing are two different types of police work.
Yes, sir.
In county policing, you're tasked with different type of calls for service. Right. You may have domestics, you may have fights, if you will, different type of situations. But in municipal policing, which is city policing, we have a lot more to deal with. We have a lot of festivals we deal with, yes, on a weekly basis. It's not a one time a year. It's right, every weekend there's a festival or an event, an 85,000 person football game. There's St. Patrick's Day. There's events all over the, yes, place. And then another aspect that we do in a municipality is we work our own vehicle collisions. So at the county, they don't work vehicle collisions on the roadways. So when we have a fatality in the city, our officers have to be trained to do accident reconstruction. Yes, sir. And that's why education is important at the level of high school, because the science and the mathematics that is incorporated into accident reconstruction is phenomenal. Yes, sir. And you have to be a very astute person to pass that class. Accident reconstruction, in my opinion, is one of the hardest courses in law enforcement. Right. So we have a lot more responsibilities than a county sheriff. Yes. Not to discredit a county sheriff, they have a separate responsibility. But the city is the city. It is the capital city of Columbia, South Carolina. So we have a lot of tourism that goes on in the city. We have a lot of visitors from other countries across the world. We host a lot of events. So the city is very busy, and the policing style is different than in a county.
Yes, sir. What are some physical fitness requirements that you have to pass to be able to work for the police department?
Physical fitness, health is first key. I don't really like to use the term physical fitness, but we do have a physical fitness requirement we call the PAT test, physical agility test. And it's a very simple test to make sure that you can run, jump fences, jump through windows, and pursue suspects, or you may have to jump through a window to save someone. Right. Or it could be an overturned vehicle, and you have to have the strength to pull that person out of the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
But more than that, it's for health reasons, because in law enforcement, we are probably the worst at making sure that we are healthy. So we run the physical agility test, and we do a mandatory physical where you go to the doctor and let a doctor check you out from head to toe yearly, because we have a high rate of diabetes, yes, a high rate of hypertension, and we just need to make sure that our officers are healthy, because if you have an unhealthy officer coming to respond, he can't help you. Yes, sir. So we want to make sure our officers are healthy. So the physical requirements police officers are naturally like to work out. They like physical fitness, so that's not a problem. But I gear more towards the health aspect to make sure that they're healthy, because you can look very good physically, but internally you can have issues, and that's why we instituted mandatory physicals every year for police officers.
Yes, sir. How would you describe the job of a first-year police officer that has just been hired on with the department?
Hard. The first year for a lot fun, but hard. The first year for a police officer is probably the fastest year of their life, because they will go through so much training, because it literally takes a year of training before you're out on that road by yourself in that patrol car answering calls, because you're doing your 13 weeks of BCS training, then you have 10 weeks at the Criminal Justice Academy, then you have another 13 weeks of what's called field training officers training. So right there you have your 13, 26, you have almost 40 weeks of training before you're cut loose to be a police officer. So that first year you're taking in so much. It's like some people like to use the analogy, taking a sip of water from a fire hose. You're getting so much information till that year flies by. But that first year is where you learn whether you're going to be committed as a career in this job, or you've made a mistake.
Yes, sir.
Because you have to be one that enjoy serving people, enjoy making citizens happy, enjoy solving problems, because a police officer is not just this guy that carries a gun and a badge. He's a social worker, he's a counselor, he's a school protector. There are so many hats that a police officer wears, and it changes in a minute. You can be eating lunch, and 5 minutes later, you could be in a car chase with someone who just committed a felony.
Yes, sir.
So in those cases, we have to make sure that's another reason we make sure our officers are healthy, because they can go from one extreme to the next. But the first year is phenomenal. It's fun. It's where you learn if this is what you want to do. Because the most important thing I would say, never look at law enforcement or public safety as a job. If you're looking for it as a job, go somewhere else.
Right.
Go to a retail store, go get a job. If you want to come into public safety, law enforcement, EMS, fire, look at it for a career, because it is not a stopgap. You don't come and receive hundreds of thousands of dollars of training and decide one day, this is not for me.
Yes, sir.
So you have to make sure in your mind that you are a person that wants to serve, good and bad, because not everyone you're going to come in contact with is going to be your friend, but you still have to treat that person with the utmost respect and see if you can come out with a solid conclusion to make that person satisfied and happy within the Constitution.
Yes, sir. If someone was interested in it, what could they do to better prepare themselves in high school? I know you talked about the technology aspects. I know sometimes they recommend like ROTC or something like that.
If you are in high school and you think law enforcement or public safety is a career, I know we have at the City of Columbia, we have the Explorer program, which is from ages, I believe, 14 up to the age of 20, because the reason it stops at 20, when you're 21, if you are an Explorer for that length of time, we automatically hire you pretty much as a police officer. But we have the Explorer program, which is great. It trains you. You're out there with police officers. You see what policing is about. It exposes you to what the career is about. I would also say to students, think about everything that you're doing now. The silly mistakes that you make, that you think is a prank, that you think is a joke, that you think no one is watching, those things are the things that will come back to haunt you, that will stop you from getting that job or getting that career in law enforcement. So you have to start now. When you're in high school, Mommy and daddy is not responsible. Mommy and daddy is there to help guide you. But when you're in high school, you are a person responsible for your own actions.
Yes, sir.
And you have to make sure that you ingrain that in yourself, because high school is only for a minute.
Right.
I know it seems like the longest 4 years of your life, but high school is only for a minute, because you have a great principal here, Ralph Schmidt. I've been knowing him for many years, and Ralph have seen thousands of students come and go, thousands of successful students. But Principal Schmidt will also tell you that high school is only for a minute,
right,
because you're going to college or you're going in the military. You're not stopping at high school. So it is a great feeling to walk across that stage to receive that diploma, but that is just the light switch of the beginning of your career.
Yes, sir. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to first thank you,
yes, sir,
for having me here at this tremendously beautiful high school. I've never seen a high school of this caliber. The students here have just been phenomenal. Thank you for having me come out, and I am willing to come out at any time. But I would just leave to the students to make smart choices. Start now. Remember what I said. You are responsible for your actions now. It doesn't start tomorrow. This is not middle school. You're at Westwood High School. You are now responsible for your actions of what you do starting today.
Yes, sir.
So 4 years from now, when you're leaving college, you have to answer for what you did in high school, or answer for what you did at a football game, or answer for what you did out in a community.
Yes, sir.
So you have to start planning your life now. I want all kids and all young adults and students to have fun, but I want them to be smart by doing it, and just realize it's your life, it's your career, it's your path, it's your success, and you will make the difference in doing it on your own.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Chief Scott. And if there's any questions anybody has or anything, you can stop by Miss Wilson's room in the work-based learning room, and she can get you some more information, even on the Explorer post or anything like that. And I'm sure if there's any questions, they could probably email you or
absolutely
give a call down to the department. So.
My email address is chiefrandyscott@columbiasc.net.
All righty. Well, thank you, and now back to the anchors. That was good.